Okay, we're going to be recording this session of today. If anybody has any objections with the recording of the session, please say so now. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to be getting into Unit 2, Databases Part 3. Okay, so what have we seen up to this point? Well, we've seen that the development of a database system has different stages. Okay, we've already talked about the first stage. These are exam questions, remember. Can somebody tell me what the name of the first stage is and what do we do in that stage? That's an exam question. That's directly an exam question.
Analysis.
Analysis, perfect, Carmina. What do we do in the analysis stage? Just roughly, what is it about? You can, yeah, Carmina, go ahead, please.
Well, basically in analysis, we need to identify and kind of investigate about what we want to do.
Basically, in an analysis stage, we're getting to know the problem, getting to know what it's about. We need to know the different elements and components, what information we want to generate, what information we want to store, what types of reports we want to generate. We're understanding the problem. And then the next stage is the design stage, which is the one that we're in here right now. So stage 2 is the design. And in the design stage, basically we want to, in the end, create a model. And with that model, we want to be able to take that model and be able to implement it using any sort of software. And so that model is the design that we're doing, that conceptual model. And right now we're talking about the design. And the design has different stages, okay? The design stage, within itself has also different steps or sub-stages. So the first one has to do with identifying entities, okay? We've already done exercises regarding that, identifying an entity. Again, another exam question. What is it? How do we define an entity? What is an entity? These are literally going to be exam questions, okay? So what is an entity in this context? Anybody? We're going to have an exam in a week. So what is an entity? How could we define an entity?
It's basically a word that is like leading. I don't know how to say it, but I don't know how to say it.
I know.
Specific structure.
Yes, please help me.
Okay, good. Thank you, Carmina.
Of a database.
Let's see. Well, let's remember to do the raise hand thing because that'll be easier to so I can see who's up. So I think Andrea raised her hand, and I think then Ricardo. So and Estrella. So let's go with Andrea.
I have like something related to the system, but I have the definition too, but that's like the short one.
The short one, that's good. And it's something that has to do with the system that we're analyzing. That's kind of the short, the rough definition. It's correct. Could we add something to that? Anybody who else raised their hand? Let's see, Ricardo, you wanted to also, you had also raised your hand.
Yes, it's the subjects of a database that have their attributes, and it's something you can that can create relationships with other entities.
Mm-hmm. Correct. So it's let's link those two definitions up. So basically, an entity is something, an object, a thing that has to do with the context of the system we're analyzing, and entities have attributes that describe them. And we can do relationships between entities, okay? And so we've done the identification of entities, we exercised that, and we've also defined relationships between entities, okay? These are the links that we have between entities that help us understand how they interact, okay? Now what we're going to do is that the next steps we're gonna do, and that's what we're gonna see today, is to define the cardinality of relationships, establish the attributes of an entity, identify the primary key, and create the global ER diagram, which is going to be basically a diagram that's going to help us represent this model of the system. Okay. But right now we are going to start focusing on number 3, which is defining the cardinality of relationships. Okay. Does somebody have an idea what cardinality means? Is it just a question off the bat? Not necessarily related to databases, but what does cardinality mean?
Does it mean something like about grouping? It's like grouping stuff, or is it?
Group? Oh, I thought you said gripping or grouping.
Oh no, like grouping. Like
Grouping.
something like
It has to do, yes, actually with the database, it is going to have to do with sort of that with grouping or with relationships. Yes, it's kind of related to that. We also talk about the cardinal points, for example, north, west, east, south, which are a reference also. So let's talk a little bit about what we mean when we're talking about cardinality of relationships. Okay, let me clear this up here. Let me go on to the next. And so cardinality is going to be the way in which entities relate to each other. So we had already defined relationships, remember? So we said, for example, students take courses. Okay, that was a relationship. Then we had said, for example, professors teach courses. That's another relationship. Patients get a vaccine. Okay. Vaccination centers have vaccines. Actors appear in episodes. TV series have episodes. These were the relationships. It was this word or small word that kind of connected entities. Okay. Now, the cardinality is going to tell us a little bit about the type of relationship we have between entities and how many of the entity instances are related to another entity's instances. Okay. And basically, cardinality can be described in various ways, in 3 general ways. So one type of cardinality is what we call one-to-one, and it's described like this. So one-to-one. Okay. And what is a cardinality that's one-to-one? An example. Let's assume that it's something related to vaccinations, okay? And let's put this context, okay? People get vaccinated or people get vaccines. Would you agree with that statement, that relationship? Patients, let's say, patients get vaccines, okay? So patient is an entity, and vaccine is an entity, and I'm just going to write them down here. So we have one entity, which is the patient, another entity that we're going to call vaccine, and the relationship between these two, we're going to say that a patient, I'm just going to write it simply, a patient gets a vaccine. Okay, would you agree with that relationship? Now, let's assume the following, just to not generate confusions. A vaccine means your complete vaccination, because you're going to say, wait a minute, there are vaccines that are 1 dose or 2 doses, right? It's still one vaccine. Okay, so it's one vaccine that has 2 doses or one vaccine that has 1 dose. So we're not talking about the doses, we're talking about the vaccine. Okay, if we're talking about the COVID-19 vaccine and the patient registration system, how many patients, how many vaccines can one patient get?
Is it
Anybody?
one?
Well, yeah, right, because I mean, right now you would get one vaccine. So one given patient, a patient is going to get one vaccine. Okay. Now, one particular vaccine, and remember what we talked about, that each vaccine is going to have kind of like a serial number. So the vaccine in itself is going to be unique. One vaccine, I can give that to how many patients?
One per patient.
Yeah, correct.
Because it changes, right?
Can you say that again, Jose Luis?
Oh, because it can only be used once and it changes.
Exactly, correct. So that's a good observation. So remember that entities are these things that have to do with the system, but a specific value of a patient is, for example, a patient is Jose Luis Guerrero, okay? And this is the vaccine. So how many vaccines can you get, Jose Luis?
My own?
Your own, exactly, one. And this is the vaccine that I just brought out of the box. How many people can I give this vaccine to?
Just me.
Exactly, just one person. And so this is an example of a one-to-one relationship, okay? One patient gets his or her corresponding vaccine. A vaccine is given to one specific patient. So that's an example of a one-to-one relationship, okay? Are we okay up to this point?
I have
Questions
a
up to?
question.
Go ahead, Andrea, please.
It has to be like exactly one thing to one thing. It can be like patients get vaccines, and it could be like, oh, two vaccines to patients, or it has to be one to one.
In this example, it's one-to-one because let's go with what you said. You said patients, plural, and vaccines, plural. That's fine. Those are the entities, okay? But and the entities is patients, okay? Let's say that this group here, we are the patients. I think we're 18 people here right now, okay? We are the patients. We're 18 patients. It's plural. But each of the patients has a specific value. So one of the patients is named Jorge Sosa Lopez. Another patient is Andrea Castellanos. Another patient is Ricardo Hodgers, right? So Andrea Castellanos, you, how many vaccines can you get?
One.
One, correct? And right now I'm going to give another example that's different from this one, okay? And if I have this vaccine, I'm going to give it to one person. So that's why it's a one-to-one relationship, okay? Even though we have many vaccines and many patients, of all of the patients and of all of the vaccines, each can only get one, okay?
Yes,
Are we
thank you.
okay? Now, let's do another example before we go to the next one, because this is where it starts sometimes to get confusing. Question: how many of you have credit cards? A few of you do. Okay, be careful, kids. Be careful with credit cards, kids. If you want me to give you a crash course as to how to not use a credit card correctly, let me know, and I'd be more than happy to give that talk. Be careful with credit cards. Well, let me give a simpler example, because maybe a lot of you don't have credit cards, but how many of you have debit cards? Your debit cards. Most of you do, right? Okay, so most of you do. Let me see here, or keep your reactions there, because I want to see who does. So again, who has a debit card? Okay, perfect. Let's see, Juan Ignacio. And remember to please open your camera when I call upon you. Okay,
Yep.
Juan Ignacio. Okay, perfect. So you have a debit card, right, Juan Ignacio?
Mhm.
Do you have it close to you right now?
It's in the room next to me. Do I
No,
go
no, no,
get it?
no. Let's, oh, here's my, let's assume that I am omnipresent and I went over to your room and I got your card, okay? So this is your card. You have a debit card. I don't know what bank, but you have a debit card, okay? So that debit card, so the entity is, I'm gonna say, person. And another entity is card or debit card, okay? So Juan Ignacio, would you agree? How would you state the relationship between these two? So person and card, what word would you put here in the middle?
The person has a card.
Yeah, it's fine. It could be has, it could be owns, it could be, let's put has. Has is fine. The person has a credit card, has, owns, etc. Okay. So going back to what I was saying to Andrea, person or people is plural, right? Credit cards or cards is plural, right? But of the persons here, there's one specific person that's called Juan Ignacio Honold. That's you, right, Juan Ignacio? And you have a card, okay? Can you please give us the number of your card, the expiration date, and the CCV, just for the example? No,
Yeah.
obviously, no.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
1, 2,
6.
3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the CCV is 111. God, I'm just seeing if you guys are paying attention. Of course not. Never do that. Never take a, by the way, don't send pictures of your cards via WhatsApp and that. Please don't try to get your identity sold. But you have a card that has a certain number here and your PIN or whatever. Okay. So Juan Ignacio has this debit card. Okay. And this debit card is only owned by Juan Ignacio. Okay. So each person has, in this case, let's assume that we can only have one debit card. And the debit card can only be assigned to one person. So would you agree, Juan Ignacio, that that card, not the account, the card that you have is only yours, okay?
Yeah.
Regardless of if you give the card to somebody else to use, it's only assigned to you, okay?
Yes.
So this is another example of a one, this could be another example of a one-to-one relationship, okay? That was a perfect answer, by the way, Juan Ignacio. Yes, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Andrea, please go ahead.
I have a question. What's the difference between like establishing relationships with cardinality and the other one, like the relationships on the second step?
Okay, let me see. I think you're talking, give me a moment. I think you're talking about, you mean this? Step 2 and 3, what's the difference?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
like-
good. Very good question, Andrea. What's the difference? Step 2 is this word here. Step 2 just has to do with this. This is defining the relationship. It's just entity and another entity, what relates them. And that's when you just use a word to relate them, okay? Cardinality or defining the cardinality has to do with this, with identifying if it's one-to-one, and we're gonna see the rest of the examples right now, because cardinality can have different ways of being represented, okay? So step 2 is just saying, I have one entity and another entity. What's the relation? What's the word that connects these two, okay? Step 3 is doing what we're doing here right now, okay? Which is defining the type a relationship, and that's defined by the cardinality. And up to this point, Andrea, we've just seen one example, which is the one-to-one. Okay. Now let's look at another example. Is it clear, Andrea?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Now let's look at another example. That's not. Let's try to look at an example that's not one-to-one. Now let's look at this one here. Now we're going to talk about the second one, which is one to many. I'm sorry, well, yes, one to many, which is this one. Okay, one to many. Now let's see which example we could put here. One to many. Let's see. A professor and a course. Okay, a professor and a course or a class. Okay. What can somebody tell me? And this, well, let's go with you, Andrea. This is step number 2. Okay, and step number 2 is just putting a word that links those two. So it's professor and courses. Can you tell me what a relationship there could be?
Professor teach courses or give?
Yep. We could use, that's good. We could use teach, for example. That is step 2. Okay. A professor teaches courses. So how many courses can I teach? So I'm the professor, Jorge Sosa Lopez. How many courses can I teach?
I only know that more than one. But
Good. That's a perfect answer, actually, Andrea. One or more. You don't know the maximum right now. Right now, we're not talking about maximums and minimums, but you know that it's more. It can be one or more, right? It could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 5, it could be 20. Now, it's probably not going to be 20 because 20 is not realistic. We're going to talk about maximums and minimums further on. But your answer was perfect. You only know that it's more than one. So I can teach many courses, right? Would you agree with that?
yes.
Now, this course in particular, let's see. I don't want to pick on you completely, Andrea. You're making very good questions. I want other people to participate. Diego. And remember,
yes, Professor.
Perfect. You're so excited always when I call upon you, but you also always answer correctly. Now, let's talk about this course in particular. It's the Data Analysis and Organization course for the second semester global program engineering students. How many professors can be the professor of this course that we're teaching right now?
I will say that any professor can teach it if they study it. I don't know. A lot?
Yeah. We should know about the courses. But I mean, right now, how many professors do you have of this course?
One. You.
We only have one. And each group has one professor. Okay? And so this is an example of a one to many. Okay? A professor can teach many courses, but one particular course can be taught by one professor. And so this is an example of one to many. One entity can have many of the other entity. Okay? One entity can have many of the other entity. Okay? And so this is an example of a one to n relationship. Okay? Questions with this one? This is also called one to many or many to one. And we usually use a we use a 1 ... and an n or and an N to denote the many. Now, when I asked Andrea, she said, well, I know that it's more than one. You don't know the maximum. You don't know the minimum. We're going to talk about the maximums and minimums in a bit, but it's important to understand the ranges. So the first we saw was 1-to-1. There can only be one instance of an entity related to another instance of an entity. And now the other one is 1-to-many. I can have one entity that has many of the other entities. Okay. Are we okay up to this point? Questions before we move on to the next one?
No.
Questions?
Okay.
Good. Now, the third type of relationship that we have is called a many-to-many. This is the more complicated one. This is a more complicated one of the three, and this is a case where you have two entities where the relationship is that one entity can be related to many instances of the other entity, and vice versa. Okay. Now let me see if I can give an example of this. Let's say academic programs. By the way, what is an academic program? Just for this, it's what you're studying. So academic programs is industrial engineering, cybernetic electronics, mechatronics. That's an academic program. Okay. And I'm going to say that over here, we're going to talk about a specific group of courses, which are the math courses. So your calculus, your differential equations, math courses. Okay, we're okay up to this point? Can somebody tell me give me a word that could relate those two? So academic programs and math courses. How could we relate?
Include or contain, something like that?
Have.
Contains or includes. Yeah, I like those. Let's say just to vary it, because we've used the haves a lot, but let's say includes. Includes. Okay. Now, how many math, roughly, how many math courses does your academic program have? Industrial engineering, roughly. And right now, the perfect answer, which would be what Andrea answered in the last time I asked something similar to that. How many math courses?
More than one?
More than one, perfect. That's gonna be the perfect Andrea answer to this. More than one, but I don't know, you could actually answer, I don't know how many, but I know it's more than one, okay? And that's perfect. Do you agree that in your academic program, you have more than one math course, right? Would everybody agree with that? Remember the reactions at least, so I know you guys are alive. So would everybody agree that you guys have more than one math course? And the math courses, would you agree that the math courses are taken by many academic programs? So for example, a calculus course is taken by all academic programs in engineering. Would you agree with that also? So this is an example of a many-to-many relationship. And how does a many-to-many relationship establish? So I have many academic programs, or an academic program can have many math courses, and one math course can be in many academic programs, okay? So that's why it's a many-to-many relationship, okay? That's the third type of relationship or cardinality that we're gonna establish, okay? The more complicated one, by the way, that we're going to see is this one. When we have a many-to-many relationship, this is going to be the more complicated one where we have to be very careful how we establish the data that's going to be registered and controlled by the relationship. So we're going to have to deal with that relationship in a very particular way. The other two are a bit more direct. Okay. We're going to do some exercises with this so we can practice. But questions up to this point before we do a break?
No, Professor.
Okay, good. So, okay, so we're talking about the cardinality, and there's these three types of cardinalities then that we just summarized: the one-to-one, one-to-many, and the many-to-many. And whenever we define a relationship, and the definition of the relationship is just setting up that word that links the two entities, we have to next identify the cardinality that the relationship is going to have. And so these are kind of diagrams that kind of represent what we're talking about. So this is important, and this goes back to a few things that we were mentioning. So A and B are the entities, okay? And A1, A2, A3, A4 are the specific values or instances of the entity, as well as B1, B2, B3, and B4. And so in a one-to-one cardinality, the relationship is established that each of the elements or each of the instances or values of one entity is going to be related exactly just to one of the instances or values of the other entity. Okay, that's the one-to-one relationship. So again, I've got a patient, okay, patient Iskra, for example, that is going to get vaccine number 3458721. Remember that we talked about the vaccines, that they would have a serial number or something that describes the vaccine. So, and that vaccine of number 3458681, whatever, is only going to be given to one person, which is Iskra. So that's the one-to-one relationship. Okay. And next up, we have the one-to-many relationship. So again, here, A and B are the entities, and A1, A2, and A3 are the instances or the specific values, as well as B1, B2, B3, B4, and B5. And so in the example of the professors, you've got A1, let's say that it's me, Professor Jorge Sosa Lopez. I'm teaching 2 courses. I'm teaching the analysis, I'm actually teaching 3 courses, but for this example, I'm teaching the data analysis and organization course for the industrial engineering global program students, and I'm teaching electricity and magnetism course for the industrial engineering global program students that are 4th semester students. Then there's another professor here, I don't know, Dr. Carlos Solorio. Carlos Solorio is teaching statistics course and a simulation course. And then there might be another professor here, I don't know, maybe Dr. I don't know, Juan Terrazas is teaching a semiconductors course for the cybernetic electronics engineering. And then the other way, then this means that each of the entities of A can have many entities or values of the entity B. So that's why it's a one-to-many relationship. And so, but each of these values or each of these instances can only be related to one of the instances of the other entity. So this particular course, the data analysis and organization course for your group, has one professor, which is myself. And this applies to the rest of the examples also. And lastly, we've got the N to M cardinality, where we've got everything, everything crosses over. And so again, A and B are the entities. A and B are the entities. And A1, A2, A3, and A4. B1, B2, B3, and B4 are the instances or values. And here we can have many instances of one related to many instances of the other. And so, for example, I've got an industrial engineering global program that has a math fundamentals of engineering course, and it's got a calculus course. And then I've got a mechatronics program that also has the math fundamentals of engineering course. And then I've got I don't know, a mechanical engineering program that has the calculus course, but also has an integral calculus course, and it has a differential equations course. And then I've got another digital graphics engineering, I don't know, that has the calculus course, and it has the integral calculus course. And then this course, this math fundamentals of engineering, can be in the industrial engineering global program, but it can also be in the mechatronics program. So this is an example of N to M cardinality. So it's many to many. Okay. Questions up to this point before we move on and try to do some examples that hopefully will help understand this a bit better or generate more confusion. Questions? No? Okay. Let's do this. We've got a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 entities. We've got 7. These are entities. These are entities. And these are entities also. And I want you guys to identify 2 things. It isn't stated here, by the way, but it's identify the cardinality, but also identify the relationships, because the relationships aren't stated there. And so I want you to identify relationships. Say it's define relationships. And identify cardinality. So it's identify the relationships and define the relationships and identify cardinality for each case. Okay, so what we're going to do now, I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to try and do this. And in this case, we're going to do random teams. So I'm just going to send you, I'm going to make some random teams and just send you out to breakouts. And I want you to discuss this and write down the relationships and the cardinality you think each of these has. Okay, and then we're going to come back and try and see what you guys got and fill this in. Okay. This slide, take a screenshot if you want. I'm going to clear this. Take a screenshot if you want, because you're going to need it, or it's also in the Blackboard, in the PowerPoint in Blackboard. Okay. Is it clear what you need to do? I'm going to set you up in random breakouts. This isn't going to be a house breakouts thing. It's going to be random breakouts just so you interact with each other. And for each of these 1, 2, 3, 4, these 7 sets of relationships, 7 sets of entities, I'm sorry, I want you to identify the relationship and try to identify the type of cardinality. If it's 1 to 1, 1 to many, or many to many. Okay, is it clear what you need to do?
Yes, Professor.
Yes.
Yes.
You said it was professors, right?
Can you repeat that again?
Faculty, you
Yes.
mean professors? Yes.
Yes. So when we talk about faculty, faculty means professors. Exactly. Correct. Okay, so I'm going to do some random breakouts here. Okay, let's discuss these relationships and cardinality for each. Let's start with the first one, and jump in. Anybody jump in? But I want to hear participation from the whole group. Remember, please participate. Or if not, I'm going to call upon you. Okay, so it's better for you to participate. So I've clearly identified the people who are participating, and I love that. And I think it's wonderful that they're participating. So thank you, Carmina. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Ricardo. I want to hear the rest of you also, please. And if not, I'm going to call upon you. Okay. So let's see. The first one that we have here is students and faculty. So what word could I put here as the relationship between those two? And let's do the raise hand thing. Okay, go ahead, Carmina.
I'm just gonna participate this once.
No, go ahead. By the way, I'm not saying that the people who are participating keep participating. The only thing I'm saying is that you guys are doing good. The people who are not participating are the ones that need to step up. So Carmina, go ahead. And then we've got Juan Ignacio.
My team and I put students learn from faculty.
Good. Let's write that down.
Okay.
We're going step by step. So the relationship we could put here, learn from. Okay, we're not gonna, we're not gonna be extremely picky right now in the semantics or what we're calling things. We just want to identify relationships. So students learn from faculty. Okay, that's good. Thank you, Carmina. Juan Ignacio, you have your hand up. What did you and your team discuss regarding the cardinality in that relationship?
Many to many, because many
Perfect.
different faculty teach many different students.
And vice versa.
And vice versa, yeah.
Correct. Perfect. I'm going to write these down. And by the way, remember to ask questions, because maybe there might be other situations where somebody else or another team say, wait a minute, we interpreted this another way, and it's valid to do to talk about it. So let's discuss this, what Juan Ignacio is saying. And we're going to use one question, Juan Ignacio, in the case of you guys or your team, what relationship did you write there?
We wrote students teach faculty. I mean, faculty teach students.
Yeah. By the way, it's correct. So the relationship can be established depending on which entity we're looking at. So faculty teach students is also valid, just that what we're going to do is the following, just so we don't get extremely confused. When we're going to be doing these analysis, we're always going to put first entity relates to second entity. So in this case, students learn from faculty is because students is first and then faculty is second. If we were to use the one you said, Juan Ignacio, we would flip them. Faculty would go first, faculty teaches students. Okay? So that would be the only thing. We would flip them from the column. Okay?
Yeah, we rewrote it. Yeah.
And that wouldn't be incorrect, by the way. That wouldn't be incorrect. We just need to clearly identify what we're talking about, and we usually go from left to right. And so students learn from faculty. So would all of you agree that one student, any of you, can learn from many faculty? Would you all agree with that? And again, just reactions.
Yes.
That makes sense, right? Remember to do the just reaction, so I know you're there. And if you don't react, I'm noticing, and I'm going to call upon you. And would you agree that faculty has many students that learn from them? Would you agree with that also? Okay. And so this is why this is a many-to-many relationship. Okay. Students learn from many faculty, and faculty have many students that learn from them. That's why it's correct what Juan Ignacio said. This relationship would be a many-to-many. We could establish this as a many-to-many relationship. Okay. Are we okay up to that point? Did anybody have something different? No? Are we good? Or questions?
Professor,
Go ahead.
we had a one-to-many because we thought the plural from the students didn't count. Like, for example, maybe 30 students are going to learn from one member of the faculty.
Oh, okay. Let's stick with that because it's important in the analysis we're making. So it doesn't really matter if the entity, if we put student or students, plural or singular, in the entity. What we have to think about is the instance of the entity. And the instance is a specific value. So students or student is the entity. Now, what is an example of one student? Alejandro Flores. So Alejandro Flores, do you learn from one faculty or from many faculty? Or not do, can you learn from one faculty or many faculty?
Many.
Many, okay. Now we go to faculty. Faculty, you can say faculty or professor. Jorge Sosa. Does just one student learn from me or can many students learn from me?
Many.
And that's debatable, right? But we're not going to get into that detail. Okay, but is it clear, Alejandro, the way we analyze it? So you're talking about the entity, and the entity itself, you can write it down as singular or plural, but then you have to think of one specific instance of that entity and try to think how the relationship is. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, good. And so the question or the way you approach it is important to clear that up. You don't necessarily approach the plurality as something inherent. Okay? You analyze it for the specific instance. And by the way, when I say instance, so the entity is students. An instance is a specific value of that entity. So Alejandro Flores is a specific value of entity students, or Juan Ignacio, or Carmina, or Andrea, or Giselle, or any of the people here. And as well as faculty. Jorge Sosa is one instance or example or value of faculty, such as Carlos Solorio, Melissa Algraves, Juan Terrazas, etc. Okay. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Clients and contracts. Can somebody tell me what relationship you guys? Let's see, Estrella. Go ahead, please.
Okay, let me. We put clients have contracts.
Perfect. Clients have contracts. Remember that the relationship, it's just something that we need to understand how they link up. We can be as specific there as we want, but clients have contracts. Okay, good. What cardinality could we establish there? What did what was discussed there? Anybody? What type of cardinality did you guys identify there? Anybody?
One to many.
One to many. Who remember to turn on your cameras or else you don't pop up. Alejandra, right? Okay. One to many. Explain a little bit how you got to that. I think it's correct. I think it's correct. It's
because one client can have many contracts, but one contract cannot have many clients.
Let's say yes. Okay. Let's say yes. Okay, I agree with that. Now, that's a correct interpretation. However, we could get into very specifics and say, I'm going to give you an example, Alejandra, of the reasoning that you guys did, I think, and it's correct. Let's say that the contract is a telephone contract, a cellular contract from Telcel or whatever. Alejandra, do you have a cell phone?
Yes.
Yes, you do, because you're in WhatsApp. You have a cell phone. So would you agree, Alejandra, that you have a contract for your cell phone and that contract is only for you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you really can, your cell phone that has that's associated to your Telcel or Movistar or whatever contract, that's only for you, okay? And so that means that the contract is associated just to one client. Okay. However, Alejandra, would you agree that you could have many phone numbers if you wanted?
Yes.
Yeah, you could have many contracts with Telcel if you wanted, but each of those contracts is only for one person. Okay. Now, we could get into more specifics and say, wait a minute, but if it's a legal contract, maybe the clients is a bunch of people that are representing something or something like that. Well, we could get into that detail, but for this example, the one to N could be correct, okay? If we're interpreting that way, okay? So clients have contracts and that would be one to N. One client could have many contracts, but the specific contract is associated to one client, okay? Good. Good job there. Questions with this one before we jump, or did somebody think about something else? Andrea, please go ahead.
Is because we wrote clients sign contracts and we put one-to-one because like a client can like sign one contract at a time.
Oh, that's a good one, by the way. That's a very good interpretation. That's another type of relationship that's different. It's correct, but it's not one to N. It's a very good, let me add that one. I like it. That means you guys are learning stuff. This is wonderful. These are the moments as a teacher, that as a professor, that are really nice. I'm going to add that one as an alternate version. So let's see, Andrea, you guys wrote clients sign contracts.
Yes, and we put one-to-one.
But let's analyze this. So signing contracts. Let's assume that, so give me a little bit more background as to how you got to the one-to-one.
Because, well, Giselle like explained to me that one client is like if you go to the bank, you are one person and you are signing just one contract like at a time.
Yes, because you can have, for example, in the telephone company, as you were saying, you can't have like two plans unless you have two telephones. Like you can sign two contracts with the same thing. For example, if you buy a house, you can't have two contracts for the same house. And things like that.
So that is also a kind of a different interpretation for those specific cases. So you're talking about situations where situations. Oh, I'm going to give an even better example. And this is an older people example. You can just be married to one person at a time. Okay, so a marriage license. An official marriage, I can't have many marriage licenses signed at the same time. Would you agree with that? Yes, please agree. And my wife is also going to agree with that.
Yes.
So you can't, and your example, the way you approached it is another way to look at a different type of relationship. But if the contract is a marriage license, when I say license, it's a civil marriage. Like you have to, that would only be my marriage license. I'm the only one that can sign that. And that marriage license can only be signed by, in this case, well, it could be two people, but in this case, I can't have many marriage licenses assigned to me, okay, or to the person, okay. That's one signature or one instance, okay, that can be had. So that's another approach that could also be valid. Okay. Now this is an interesting example because we can have entities that can have different types of relationships. Okay. Now, what is going to define if the first one or the second one are correct? The type of problem. Right now, I'm just launching two entities at you guys, and I'm asking you to do relationships. But depending on the specific problem, it might be a case where a client can only sign one type of contract. Okay, that would be one-to-one. Okay, so these would be different versions. Okay, that could be correct. Carmina, please go ahead.
Professor, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
We put many to many. So
okay,
I don't know if that's right.
That could be another situation with the contract, but tell us a little bit about your reason. First, tell us the relationship that you guys
always have. Clients have contracts and we put many to many. Okay. Maybe a contract in a company where there are like several people that have that contract, and that contract is signed by several people. So I don't know if that is right or not.
Okay, let's let's go with that. That was the other example I was giving that could also be a situation. So let's talk about a collective contract. Okay, it's like again, these are older people problems, but when you go into a company, you usually get an insurance policy. Okay, you have your insurance. For example, I have my insurance at CETIS that's through a collective insurance scenario. That means that there's an insurance company, that's whatever insurance company, GNP or whatever, where there is a collective contract for all of the employees to have coverage. Okay, so it's an example of a collective contract. It's one contract that's signed by many, and many employees could have many different insurance policies. Okay, so that could be another approach to the many to many. Okay, so either of these could be correct depending on the context or the situation. Okay, so this is important. The three of them in the case of clients and contracts can work, but it would depend on the context. And what is going to be given by the context, the specific problem that we're analyzing is going to have specific details of the context. So in the case of clients and contracts, we could have many different situations of the cardinality. It's going to depend on the context of the problem. Okay, I'm glad you guys thought about these different scenarios. That's good. Okay, we're gonna stop here, and we're gonna continue with the rest of the examples next session.